So let's go to the issue here of genocide. Oxford Dictionary definition: the deliberate killing of a large number of people from a particular nation or ethnic group with the aim of destroying that nation or group. And we know that Hamas advocates genocide against Jews, right? It's in their covenant, Article 7, the last paragraph talks about killing Jews wherever. Okay, but this is the definition. Now, they're using that against us, right? Accusing us of genocide. The International Criminal Court made the accusation. You have the International Court of Justice, right? All this being done, but where are the facts? Where are the facts? So we'll continue. Next slide, please. Okay, so Israel is beyond cautious. Okay, and it doesn't matter what we happen to think. We know there's always lots of debates. This one or that one thinks of the government. We're talking here of a military policy and an overall defense policy. There is absolutely no deliberate killing of non-involved civilians. None, zero. Okay, there's no apparatus or mechanism for that. Yes, there can be a mistake. Yes, an explosion can happen here and there. Yes, something can misfire. We know it's a war, especially in urban areas. So let's take a look, right? When you have a genocide, would you put out 7 million flyers, drop them from the air to tell people to evacuate? Think of any genocide. 70,000 phone calls made to people individually. 13 million text messages. Okay, there are only 2 million people in Gaza. Not everybody has a phone, of course. All right, and maps to warn Gazans to move and where to move and how to get out of the way, and most were saved. There too, sometimes there were mistakes, but the idea was, remember the corridor going south in Gaza, when we evacuated the north, we said you had to leave. Now, we always know 10% of the population refuses to leave and remains behind. They put themselves in harm's way. And also, Hamas was trying to halt anybody leaving the north, trying to make it more difficult. And therefore, you're very much using them, as we know, as human shields. Get to that in a moment. Now, where do we have a lot of the information from? UN sources themselves here. I just went over today. The UN and EU sources. And we know the EU, as much as they're said to be an ally, they're very critical of us. Some countries more, others less, but still. And they say in all general warfare, it's a 9-to-1 ratio of civilians to soldiers killed in modern warfare. Talking the last, call it 25, 30 years, maybe a bit more. All right. Yet in Israel and what's going on in Gaza, 40,000 Gazans have died in 340 days. It's about a 118 per day. Okay. There's no way that's a genocide. 16,000 of them are Hamas terrorists and fighters. And have we noticed that it always talks about Palestinian casualties, but doesn't say, are they combatants or not? And up until this conflict, if you go through Protective Edge 2014, the Hamas themselves would differentiate. At the beginning of the war, they began to somewhat. They got to a point where they announced 6,000 casualties, but then they saw the Western press reporting just a general amount. So they stopped talking about their own casualties. So, of course, we're counting them. 16,000 at least. My discussion with Elliot today, and he's involved very much with the military, says, look, it's a lot closer to 20,000. And I said, you know what? I'm going to use the low number, just so nobody can accuse me of overdoing it. All right. And by the way, the international sources know this. They won't report it that way. After all, those Nukhba terrorists that came across, and a good amount were killed, thousands, right? We say 3,000 came across today. It looks like it's closer to 6. The thousands and thousands that were killed, why are they just included in a general counting? Okay. It's insane. In any case, 40% are combatants, at least. And if we take the ratio, 16, right, out of 40,000, very quickly, that's 40%, meaning that it makes it a 1 Hamas terrorist fighter to every 1.5 civilians, which just in the general warfare is very low. When you're thinking of what's going on out there in the field and small villages, whatever, not in a very a dense urban environment. Okay. So it's very low, and you can look these things up. You go into it, Wikipedia, elsewhere, and we know Wikipedia themselves are leaning towards that Israel's committing genocide, and they themselves have articles up there, or are hosting articles proving that that is not the case. And once again, we have the UN actually saying it in 2020 2. Next slide, please. Okay, so the jihad theology. How do you want to achieve getting to heaven? You kill or be killed by a Jew. In other words, battling Jews. By the way, it also includes Christians, also Christians. And you actually get a double reward. We'll be getting into that. It's in the Islamic texts. And we know urban warfare is always higher casualties. And certainly when civilians are being used as human shields. And many of them know they're doing that because they figure, to be a shaheed or they'll achieve martyrdom, right? Be a martyr. And it's also in the literature. Some of the recent fatwas or edicts that are out there from the late 20th century into the 21st. They go beyond being human shields, but be human sacrifices. In other words, it said basically that, okay, so you were sacrificed for the cause. Our biggest problem is that if there are casualties on their side, we're at fault. And it doesn't matter who it is. You notice they don't even count armed Hamas members. And certainly if it's, civilians, right, we're in terrible trouble. And then on our side, right, the amount of casualties we have, military or otherwise, or civilians, so it always works against us. On the other hand, it all works for them. The more Israelis are killed, doesn't matter, military or civilian, they're happy, it's a celebration. And when they have their own fighters killed, terrorists, they are considered to be martyrs, as are the civilians, and the civilians can be used twice over, for sure, as victims of, quote, Israeli aggression, Israeli genocide. And once again, I'll go back to it, not even differentiating one from the other, right? Who's fighting, who's a combatant, and who isn't. Bottom line also, just a bit of statistics, right? 47, right? If we take 300, we take 40,000 divided by 340 days of conflict, 47 Hamas combatants are killed for every 71 non-involved. And amongst the non-involved, right, we know many caught in the crossfire or human shields, human sacrifice. And we'll add into this also, and it's a little tough to do the statistics, but what about the natural death rate? Has anybody thought of that one? Also, there are quite a few tens of thousands who die naturally in Gaza of every year. Sort of like thrown into the mix also. So you can also take off, I think it's, may even go, is it 6 or 7 for every day, if not more. Okay, so the number really is much closer to 1 to 1, and that's in urban warfare. So there's absolutely no genocide.